All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua, and I'm going to be your presenter today. Welcome to all of you. We're here to talk about recurring accounting transactions. And just a couple things before we get started on the topic. We're going to work till 20 minutes after 1. Maybe this topic might finish up a little bit sooner than that. It's not a terribly difficult or detailed topic. I will certainly do my best to try to keep an eye on questions and answer them for folks. So if you do have questions, you may certainly type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel there. And just all I ask is that just be patient with me. It is just me. I don't have anyone else answering questions here for me today. And if you have time, by all means, you can stick around at the end. I'll try to do my best to answer your questions then if I don't get to them in the middle of the webinar event. Again, we just simply ask that you do keep the questions on topic here. So it should be really centered around recurring transactions, their setup, use, etc. Again, it's not that I don't want to answer other questions in other portions of the software. I just am not either equipped for it, either in my data or in my thinking. So, please contact our support staff if you have other questions. 800-533-5227. We're always available and happy to help. Again, visit our our webinar page on our website. As there may be a topic on the subject that you have a question about in future. So if you've never checked that out, please do. We're happy to. You're always welcome to attend as many of these webinar events as you wish. Finally, the recurring transactions topic is covered in Accounting A202 training workbook, pages 8 to 14. So if you have the current workbook for that, you can look in A202, pages 8 to 14. If you don't own one of the workbooks, you may look at purchasing those online from our shop. They they are different from like manuals or the help files or what have you, and they are designed for training and they are very helpful. And it is that topic that I'm using from the training workbook as a guide for our webinar event today. Okay? All right, so recurring accounting transactions. So when we go into accounting here, you can set up recurring transactions for let me introduce my highlighter friend here, for our enter income transactions, for our enter bill transactions, for our journal entry transactions. So under other right up here, we can also do recurring journal entry transactions. We can also set up recurring transfers. So right up here at the top right of our transfers window, we do see our recurring transactions button here. But basically recurring transactions, setting up recurring transactions and using them, they're helpful in a couple of different ways. They can save you time. You don't have to reselect the same accounts each and every time. It's just set up as part of a structure of the transaction, a framework as it were. So you can save time on that by not having to reselect accounts, editing less information. It also improves the accuracy of the transactions by ensuring that we're choosing the same accounts each and every time. So it improves accuracy and means for less mistakes for we as humans. So those two alone could make it worthwhile to set up recurring transactions. Also, those transactions are basically being set up to reuse over and over and over again. That's the real benefit of setting up and using recurring transactions. Okay. You can set up, as we're going to see here, pretty much as many recurring transactions as you wish, and we're going to see here in a little bit about how you can categorize those together for ease of use in terms of using those as well. So let's go to enter bills. That's probably one that most everybody uses to pay their bills, is when you're going using the enter bills function. So we're going to use that as part of our webinar example today. One of the things that I always get asked a lot on support calls here, I always bring a lot of my support call experience into my webinar events. I think it's often helpful, is that there's nothing automated about these recurring transactions. What I mean is you set them up, and then when you need to use them, it does require user input to actually select the entry and post it, as we're going to see. So recurring transactions doesn't mean that the system is posting them automatically. It always requires user input in order to have that happen. Okay. So when we're in our recurring or enter bills window, we're going to see in the upper right corner our button called recurring transactions right up here. Everybody should be able to see that. Let me see if I can, yeah, not a badly drawn arrow today. So when we click on that, it does reveal a list of already previously set up recurring bill transactions that we have in our training data here. Okay. That's fine. Yours, if you've not been using them, when you come in here, this list will be blank. Okay. So you basically simply click the Create New button here in the upper left corner. Right here, Create New. Okay. That when you click on that, it allows us to choose to add, set up or create a bill recurring transaction. So it's going to pop up and say, you know, create bill recurring transaction, or, you know, create journal entry recurring transaction. Whatever transaction type you're setting it up as, it will help you set that. It'll show that actual description on the screen itself. So as we're setting up or creating a recurring bill transaction here, there are some information fields here. You know, some are required, some are not, of course. So description is basically just a free field where you can type in a brief description of, you know, what this is. You know, worship supplies, if I could spell that right. Yep, and then frequency again is just again a basic free field that allows you to identify how often the bill is paid. You know, so we're going to say in this case it'll be monthly. You know, I mean, again, there's nothing required about this. This is just informational. So in this case, we're going to type in our vendor payee. So who is it? Do we have Cokesbury in here? No. Who is our worship supplies vendor payee? Let's see if I can find one here. Trinity Supplies. There we go. So here you can enter some comments about these transactions if you wish. Then down here, notice it says expense/income account. So in most cases it is going to show an expense account, but we notice that as we scroll down the list, we will eventually change from our expenses into our income accounts. So I'm going to type in here worship supplies, and what do you know, there's my worship supplies expense. And of course now those are not necessarily a fixed cost in this case, so I don't have a regular monthly payment, but it does require that if I try to click Save Transaction here, notice it does pop up with a little red X there telling me, hey, you've got to enter something in the amount. So in order to construct at least the basic structure or framework of the recurring transaction bill for my worship supplies, I'm going to type in just $1 in there. Just something. Could be a penny, could be a dime, could be $1. I'm just going to type that in there and simply click, and I can enter line item comments too, and simply click Save Transaction. So now notice that in our list of recurring transactions here, we do have one called worship supplies with the basic information that I have set up that I have now. Now again, I don't have, notice we've got a column here called last post, and the reason why we don't have that populated here is because we haven't posted anything using this recurring transaction yet. However, as soon as I do click post, after using the recurring transaction for the very first time, it will populate with the last transaction that was posted using this recurring entry. Okay. One of the other nice things, and I think this is a frequently or commonly overlooked feature of the recurring transactions, is they can be categorized. So over here on the right hand side, we notice we've got a column called category, and each of them currently say uncategorized, and that's because we haven't set them up to be grouped together by category. So let's show you how that works. So if we click under category, notice there's nothing in our list. So we're going to go down here to the lower left corner, and we're going to click Edit Categories right down here. Well, not so good a drawn arrow. So then once we click on Edit Categories, it opens up our recurring transaction categories, and it allows me to enter a description. So as we see behind here, some of a good example of categorizing a group of recurring bill transactions in this case is our monthly utilities. So we're going to call this one utilities, and we're going to simply click the add button to the right, and it sets up a recurring transaction category called utilities. And let's say we want to add another one here, so we put in worship and we click add. So you could continue to add more categories if you wish, and then we simply click OK. So now, again, nothing shows up in our categories here on the right side until we assign those. So now if I click next to my telephone bill and now I click the down arrow next under the category, notice worship or utilities appears. So I can simply choose the respective recurring transaction that I'm wanting to assign here. Okay? And then down under worship supplies, I'll choose worship. And so there, you know, and if I don't enter anything, they will be still subsequently considered as uncategorized. Not that that's a terribly bad thing. You know, if there's, maybe they're not. You know, if I've got a bill that I pay, you know, once a quarter, like maybe my insurance, or semi-annually, right there it says semi-annually, I may not go in and create a category within which to put my insurance. The system doesn't require it. Okay? So when wanting to use recurring transactions now, okay, because we've now got some structured here, we're wanting to use those, I can, you know, I would simply close out of my, you know, enter bills. Now here it is, I'm ready to use some. I click on recurring transactions. I would simply highlight one of them and simply click the paste button here in the upper right hand corner, right here. Okay. Then when I do that, it pastes the transaction over into my unposted bills batch down here at the bottom. So if I wanted to edit my Ameritech bill, maybe I didn't like the date occurred or the amount needs to change, I can either highlight it and click edit here in the lower left corner, or I can simply double click on it. It moves it back up to the top half of the window, at which point here, you know, I can change the date on it, I can change the account, I can edit the amount, I can do anything I wish with this particular transaction, and then click Done, Add to Batch. Okay. If I go back to my recurring transactions, if I do want to select multiples, I can also hold down my Control key, and notice here I can select more than one. So I don't have to do just one at a time. I can do multiples. Or if I wish to use my categories that I've set up, I would simply go down to my bottom, at the bottom here where it says Select Rows by Category. Okay? So when I click the down arrow, there's all of my categories. So I can now choose, say, Utilities, click OK, put a check mark there, click OK, and now notice it's pre-selected all four of those bills that I had pre-selected or had categorized as utilities. Now I can click Paste. Okay? So here I've got the one for Big City Utilities that I don't have a fixed amount for. Again, I can just edit any of these by simply double-clicking on them, editing my date, you know, my amount, my account, whatever I wish to edit on those. I can absolutely come in here and you know, edit those amounts and those dates, anything I want about this transaction. Click Done, Add to Batch, go to the next one, double click on it or click Edit, edit it, click Done, Add to Batch, basically ad nauseum. Okay? Again, I've saved myself having to reselect these vendors, reselect the respective expense accounts. So again, you can save yourself time and effort and certainly mistakes by setting up and using recurring transactions. Okay? If, say, I'm either needing to edit or change a recurring transaction, I can simply go back to the list, and if I wish to remove one, I can go, okay, I'm going to highlight my insurance, and then down here or up here in the upper left corner, I can simply click Delete Selected right there. Or, you know, our chart of accounts changes from year to year. You know, so it may be that you want to edit one. You know, so if I click on a particular line item here and I click Edit Selected, it opens up my Create a Bill Recurring Transaction for my water bill, allowing me to edit or change anything I wish about this transaction, whether it's my vendor or the expense or anything, and then I would simply click the Save Transaction button down here at the bottom right. Okay, and then it will have picked up any changes that I made to the recurring transaction. Only for transactions which I have not yet posted in future. It won't change anything historically. Okay. Yeah, recurring transactions are very, very handy. Okay. In terms of our income transactions, they work pretty much exactly the same. If I go into Enter Income, click on Recurring, notice here we've got some recurring transactions, this income transactions the same way. It does reveal the accounts that are involved in the entry. I can categorize my income postings. I can also tell the system if those should appear on my deposit slip as well. The one main difference I think here between income or bills would be as if I go up to Other and Journal Entry. I have to choose a date on that. If I go to my recurring transactions here, the difference primarily is I do have to have a balance debit and credit here. So if I click Create New, it's a little bit different from the standpoint that I do have a debit and a credit amount column here. Okay, so I would still enter the description, frequency, and comments, but let's say, well, as we see here, like under my prepaid pledges, I debit my prepaid pledges liability and I credit my general tithes and offerings income. So the journal entry transaction has to have balanced debits and credits, or else it won't allow you to save your recurring transaction. Okay, so I think, again, I've been doing this for a long time, folks, I think personally that the recurring transactions personally is one of the probably most underused features in the accounting module. If there's anything, and I look at lots of charts of accounts either on a daily or weekly or monthly basis and a lot of systems, and on, I'd say probably 80% or 90% of the users' databases that I look at, I go into recurring transactions, there's nothing there. You can save yourself, again, time. You can increase your accuracy and speed with regards to using these. So, set up and use recurring transactions whenever and wherever possible. Okay. Again, nothing terribly challenging about it, so I'm done with what I'm talking about here. Let's see if any folks have any questions here. This recording of this movie will be available on our YouTube channel between now and Friday at 5 p.m. of this week. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, please do so. There are all kinds of recordings out there at youtube.com/churchwindows /churchwindows software. Being asked, please show the steps for EFT. Okay, well, EFT is simply a payment method. So when we're dealing with enter bills here, there is no payment method required. So EFT is transactions in terms of these, Deanna, would be treated no differently than any others. The only thing that may be different here is if you wished on your recurring transactions, right here under our income, you can certainly record a payment method for the recurring income transaction if you wish, but for the bills, journal entries, I think you might be required, or you might have the opportunity to enter a payment method when posting transfers too. But again, it's just a payment method. But the transactions and accounts involved are always the same. Good question. I'm just waiting to see if other folks are maybe typing in some questions here. I think probably to conclude that, if I click on Create New and it opens up my Create Recurring Income Transaction, I do have a payment method, but the system doesn't require it. But that's only applicable for transfers, folks, and for income postings for bills and journal entries, payment method is not in play. Any other use for category option other than the case of selecting bills to pay? Diane, not really. In terms of the only place that the categories is available to use is in the recurring window. So, Yeah, the selecting the rows by category for grouping transactions together by category is their sole and only purpose here. Yeah, the categories is not an option in any other location in this in accounting. Good, another good question. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. Again, it's 20 minutes after the hour. Thank you so very much for taking the 20 minutes out of your day to spend with us. Look for the recording of this event to be available on our website, again, by 5 p.m. this coming Friday. And we hope to see folks at another Church Windows User Group webinar event. All right, thank you all so much. We'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.